Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing something really exciting. We are taking some incredibly complex cognitive science and transforming it into a highly actionable visual blueprint. The goal? To help you master high-stakes learning without completely burning yourself out. Listen, whether you're gearing up for a massive professional certification, staring down university finals, or trying to wrap your head around a complex new language, we are going to completely rewire how you approach studying.
Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty tough question. Does your current study routine secretly rely on the illusion of competence? You know what I mean, right? If your habits look like endlessly rereading the same familiar notes, going crazy with a highlighter on your textbook, or just kind of waiting around for inspiration and motivation to strike while your brain is actually tricking you. It makes you feel super prepared because the material looks familiar on the page, but it's actually setting you up for total failure when you finally have to perform from memory under pressure.
To fix that, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with learning under immense pressure, then break down proven science versus rigid myths, and move on to building bulletproof academic arguments. After that, we'll apply it all to conquering the CPA exam, mastering SAP and English, and finally, wrap it up with a sustainable daily protocol you can actually use.
All right, let's jump right into our first section, learning under immense pressure.
So, what exactly happens when examination pressure starts mounting? Well, your brain literally detects danger. It triggers what psychologists call the threat system. It throws up this massive emotional shield, completely narrowing your focus to the fear of failure, and boom, you hit total study paralysis. Think about that for a second. It means your procrastination is rarely just you being lazy. Actually, scratch that. It's almost never laziness. It's emotional avoidance. You are subconsciously avoiding the highly negative feeling of not knowing the answer. Understanding this threat system model is absolutely the first step to taking your power back.
Which brings us right to Section 2, proven science versus rigid myths. Let's separate fact from fiction here.
Okay, so the absolute holy grail of the science of learning is retrieval practice. The golden rule is incredibly simple. You should never ever begin a study session by passively rereading. Instead, you have to force your brain to produce an answer completely from scratch. Write down what you remember, explain a concept out loud to an empty room, or try to reconstruct a formula from memory. This diagnostic step instantly shatters that illusion of competence we talked about earlier, showing you exactly where your real knowledge gaps are.
And hand in hand with retrieval is distributed practice. Science has proven time and again that returning to material after some forgetting has already begun is far, far superior to pulling a massive all-night cramming session. Think of your memory like a muscle, right? It needs time to break down and then rebuild. Spacing out your study sessions actually allows the brain to fully solidify those neural connections. Cramming's out.
Now, you're going to need a few other non-negotiable tools in your arsenal, too. First up is self-explanation, where you actively stop and ask yourself, wait, why is this answer correct? Next is learning by teaching, often playfully called the teddy bear test, where you explain concepts out loud to a completely simulated audience. Also, you absolutely must prioritize adequate sleep. It is literally mandatory for memory consolidation. And finally, you have to set aggressive digital boundaries. Blocking those mobile phone distractions is crucial to protect your working memory from the exhaustion of constant task switching.
So, those rigid productivity rules you always hear about, the ones boxed in red on the left, they are scientifically unsupported myths. For example, forcing yourself to study for exactly 4 90-minute blocks a day, dividing every syllabus into exactly 8 perfectly equal parts, or believing that a dedicated study lamp somehow magically enhances your memory, it's total nonsense. These illusions must be replaced with an adaptable reality. Your study sessions should be based on your actual fatigue levels, your workloads need to be flexible, and your retrieval environments should actually be varied so you don't become overly dependent on one specific setting.
Let's transition over to Section 3 now, building bulletproof academic arguments.
I want you to think of your brain like a car for a second. You cannot press the accelerator of divergent idea generation and hit the brake of convergent evaluation at the exact same time without completely stalling out. When you're writing or brainstorming, you've got to generate your messy, rough explanations first without judging them at all. Just let it flow. Only after you have that raw material should you switch over to convergent thinking to rigorously evaluate, correct, and edit. Separating these two modes is a real game changer for destroying writer's block.
I absolutely love this informal but super memorable rule from the source material. Spill the beans. Listen, when you're writing an academic argument or an exam response, your writing should never be a mystery voyage.
You're not writing a thriller novel where the killer's revealed on the last page. You must reveal your principal conclusion right up front in the introduction. Tell the reader exactly where you are taking them from the very first sentence.
And when you're actually structuring those arguments paragraph by paragraph, the single most vital step is number 4, asking so what. You see, evidence does not just magically interpret itself. You can drop a brilliant quote or a massive statistic into your essay, but you must explicitly explain why that data point actually proves your claim. If you don't answer that so what, you're really just listing facts, not building an argument.
Okay, moving right along to Section 4, Conquering the CPA Exam.
If you passively rely on familiarity, a brutal professional exam of this caliber will absolutely destroy you. Instead, science dictates using a very strict 5-step reasoning sequence for every single exam question. First, you state the conclusion. Then, identify the specific rule. Next, pull the relevant fact from the scenario, apply the rule to that fact, and finally, state the required output. Sticking to this framework guarantees logical accuracy and, crucially, it keeps panic from completely derailing your thought process.
Now, when you're doing your retrieval practice, you are inevitably going to make mistakes. It happens. But simply looking at a wrong answer and saying, I messed up, is entirely useless. You have to file away the exact type of failure in your error log. Was it a fundamental knowledge gap, a simple calculation error, a reading oversight, or maybe just a time pressure panic? By properly classifying the error, you can effectively fix the actual root cause instead of just wildly guessing at how to improve. Which takes us to Section 5, Mastering SAP and English. Let's see how these same rules apply here. For the SAP professionals out there, mapping your performance-based exams into a logical sequence is absolute key. Today's IT certifications are heavily shifting away from just memorizing multiple-choice questions and moving toward actual hands-on performance in the system. By structuring your knowledge linearly, from the basic requirement down through the organizational structure, master data, configuration, and all the way to final validation, you can confidently explain and execute the entire workflow. No rigid, memorized scripts required.
And for language learners, applying the oral teddy bear test works literal miracles. It means putting away your translated transcript and using these 4 simple prompts to explain a technical concept out loud in English. You ask yourself, what's the rule? Why does it matter? Can I give an example? And what's an exception? By doing this, you're actively bridging deep technical knowledge with real-world language acquisition. It is an incredibly powerful dual learning mechanism.
All right, let's bring it all together in our final section, your sustainable daily protocol. Here's the best news of the day. You absolutely do not need 6 grueling hours of study to succeed. This perfectly blocked 90-minute timeline triggers every single scientifically validated learning mechanism we've just discussed. You kick off with a 10-minute blind retrieval warm-up, dive right into 35 minutes of intense practical application, spend 20 minutes classifying your errors, take 15 minutes to verbally explain concepts, and finish off with 10 minutes of planning for tomorrow. It's dense, it's highly efficient, and most importantly, it actually respects your time and energy.
If there is literally just one sentence you take away from this entire explainer today, let it be this ultimate integrated principle directly from the research. It perfectly maps out the entire journey of learning. You have to regulate your stress, retrieve information actively, explain it clearly, evaluate it with real evidence, apply it repeatedly, fix your errors, and importantly, actually let yourself rest and recover.
So, now that you know the illusion of competence is literally the only thing standing between you and your exam success, the ball's entirely in your court. Forget passively rereading, throw away the highlighters, and stop waiting around for the perfect mood to strike. I want to leave you with this. How will you actively test your brain today? Start retrieving and watch your true competence grow. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy studying!